Hey, everybody. I'm so excited. This is Connect and Motivate for Change, or I said for change, connectandmotivate.com. We're just having a good old time. Hey, I am your co host, Mr. Stephen Boster, along with three wonderful friends. We are all certified communication trainers, experts in our field, and we have come together to have a nice convo. We're going to have some conversations today. So, we're going to have like a little virtual coffee table action going on. And so I'm excited that you're joining us. We're all excited about being here. The big thing is we want to talk about, we just love talking about communication, how to talk much more better. Sometimes I'll say it like that. We also, that we really kind of nerd out on just kind of the details of the science behind communication. And so sometimes we'll talk about those things. But tonight, we really want to discuss and talk about just some of our fun success stories, the people that we've worked with or people that we know have worked with, just about communication and how it makes a difference. So in other words, how to be a better. I'll say it again. That used to be a drinking game for me. I just say it all the time and then I drink every time. So I'm just kidding. I won't do that. Hey, everybody. I'm so thankful we're all here together to chit chat and talk all about communication. And so we're going to kind of run through everybody and who's who on this wonderful panel. We are all communication experts. We all know each other from our days of becoming certified trainers in the process communication model, which has changed our lives in so many ways. But let's do this. Let's start off. Right above me here is Larita. Larita, would you say, hey, just tell us who you are and just your connection to the communication world.
Absolutely. I'm Loretta Jarvis. I am a behavioral scientist and I love teaching adaptive communication skills and helping people find their blind spots and designing custom programs for people to just leverage difficult situations to actually grow closer together.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Great to have you here, Larita. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited about this collaboration we're all doing together. So good to have you. And now let's move on to your to the left. Is that or something like that?
It's the right
We've
on my screen.
he's right. Steve, say hello to everybody and just tell us about yourself, pretty please, sir.
Hi, you bet. Hey, Steve Maley here. I am an engineer by schooling and work at an aircraft manufacturer and had been there over 30 years, gotten into management where I got to stop playing with the actual aircraft and actually started dealing more with people. And that meant I actually had to talk to them. Ooh. And that's where this process communication model really came in, a big time help to help me get past just talking facts and figures and numbers and talk more about what connected with people so that we could actually get the jobs done. So big benefits from this thing. So I'm glad I get to come on here and talk a little bit about it as well.
Yes. And one day, everybody, we will tell you the story about more cowbell. Just saying. And Steve was the timekeeper at some of our sessions, and so he ran around with a cowbell. It was one of the funniest things ever. Anyway. Sandy, please say hi to everybody and introduce yourself if you would, please.
I think I saw an interview one time where Will Ferrell said that more cowbell ruined Steve Buscemi's life, as told to him by Steve Buscemi. That he did not. No, that's not Steve Buscemi. It's Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. I got a fever.
Yes.
And the only prescription.
Yes. So apparently he does not love how many people come to him on the street and ask for more cowbell.
And I'm sure in a Christopher Walken accent too.
So that's not the point. Hi, everyone. I am Sandy Browand. I am a facilitator, a team facilitator by day, a ropes course zipline trainer, which means I work with groups of people and spend a lot of time doing risk management and helping them stay safe. And so I, unlike Mr. Maley there, I love working with people. I'm very excited about it. He had to shift gears to stop being an engineer and start working with people. I love working with people. And so I love being able to communicate effectively with them and helping them to, to learn in the courses that I train, to pass on to them how they can be more effective with the people they work with. And yeah, training is my in. I want to communicate because I want to be a better trainer, so that the world is full of better facilitators out there.
Yep. I love it. Love it.
When you're editing, please change this intro. That was worse than the first one.
I may keep it just because of that.
I think you need to keep it because I thought it was great the way she was. Thought for sure she was going to talk about how she does zip line by day and what does she do by night. And she does zip line. She's that kind of lady.
Everybody, we are just good friends, just
At night,
hanging
I'm
out.
Batman, so
Oh gosh. Well, also everybody, I'm Stephen Boster. By day, I'm actually operations manager for a bookkeeping firm that does bookkeeping for churches nationwide. So we interact with a lot of different people on a lot of different things. And when you're talking money, you got to be able to communicate. And so I love helping the team be able to do that. And my skill sets really help with that. I also help churches all across the United States with this material, with the process communication model, but from an exclusive spiritual application side of it. So knowing how their God-given design and how they view the world, interact with the world. We're actually going to talk a little bit about that tonight, but also just really kind of what best helps connect with people and helps motivate them. And tonight we're here just to share those stories and just have a great time doing so. And we're already to a great start. So with that being said, hey, who wants to share their story first? Who would like to go first? Kind of jump in the pool and sit there and say, I'm going to tell my story. We're all trying to point to different people.
Loretta
Wait,
loves to
what is
go
it? What is it? You touch your nose? You touch your nose or your forehead? What's the...
Oh, look, it must be Maylee.
Oh, all right.
Oh, gosh.
All right. Settle down, children.
should we settle down and listen to a story?
Let's listen
Grandpa.
to the story from an engineer.
I said I wasn't going to do this, but I may do it now.
Yes. Many years ago. When there was, yeah. So yeah, no, actually, so as I said, aircraft engineer, and yes, I had gone through and gotten my degree, and I've had the calculus, the calc 2, the calc 3, the differential equations, the physics 1, the physics 2. For some reason, they even had me take quantum physics, which I'll never make an aircraft go that fast. I know now why, but anyway. And so I was very much into creating good designs for the aircraft. And I had a manager one time that just rubbed a lot of the engineers the wrong way, is the best way I'm going to say. And they would say, you got to watch out for that one. And so let's just call him Lou. And so Lou would always come by, and they said he was always trying to pick a fight or make himself or belittle the engineer. So I was like, oh, great. Okay, I'm going to watch out. Well, one day Lou came by and asked what I was working on. And so I was working on a design of a fuselage frame in an aircraft. And he said, okay, I see what you're doing there, but what do you think is, you're getting down to that area where you got to tie into the floorboard. What do you think is the best way to tie into the floorboard? And so I said, well, I've looked at some of the other aircraft, and I think I ought to do it this way. And he goes, well, yeah, that's great for making a simple design, but what about the serviceability of this thing? You haven't even considered serviceability on this thing. You need to, and we must be able to service it. I was like, okay, great. Okay, I'll work on it. Days pass. I get another design. Actually, months pass. Get another design. He comes up, and I'm like, okay, he's into serviceability. And so he shows up and he goes, hey, Steve, what are you working on now? And I kind of explain I'm laying out hydraulic cables or hydraulic tubes that don't have hydraulic cables. That'd be the flight controls. Anyway, sorry, too technical. Hydraulic tubes. And he says, what's your methodology? What's going to be the best way to lay these out? And I start explaining to him, thinking, okay, he's all about service, so I'm going to make it so that the guy can easily get his hands in there and do it. And he goes, well, that's all good and well, Steve, but we got to be able to manufacture these things. Haven't you ever considered that you got to be be concerned about the manufacturability of it. And so what you must be concerned about manufacturability, because then you won't be able to service it. And it's like, okay. And it wasn't till I took some of the training that we're all certified in that I started realizing that really he wasn't wanting to know what I thought was the best design. He wanted to have a platform where he could talk about what he, in his eyes, what he was the best design. So basically, he wanted to share his opinion. So with this training, I wish I had it more because I had moved on, but I would have loved to have a situation where he would come up to me and says, "What are you doing now, Steve?" And I would say, "Okay, I'm doing flight controls this time. Flight controls. I'm looking at the flight controls and making sure the pulley system works well." Well, great. What do you think what's the best design for this thing? And I would respond with more of a question of, that's a great question. And I don't mind sharing my opinion, but I would really like to hear what you say. And that opens up that discussion for us to then have him come forward and tell me what he thinks. And then we can talk about, okay, from a manufacturability, we need to be able to do this, but from a serviceability, we need to do that. And get into that discussion instead of it being just a confrontation from the very beginning where I'm always on the defensive. That's what this process has really taught me, is how to open up, connect, and discuss things.
Do you think for him it was the reason that everyone probably presumed that he was all like, oh, he'll always argue with about something, really revolved around just, hey, I just want to be included. I just want to give my opinion. I just want to share what I have because no one else was asking him?
Well, I think that had something to do with it. He being a manager, I'm sure felt that pressure. Sorry if I left that off at the beginning. So a little tidbit. He was a manager. I'm sure he had that pressure that he wanted to produce the best designs out of the group, and that he was trying to reach for a higher level. And I think that's what made him really, not that he didn't want to have conversation. It was more of a control issue and was concerned about his performance. If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
It does. Yeah. I find it interesting that, what's it called? The imposter syndrome. Where people deal with the fact they second guess their abilities or what they're capable of. And it comes out in certain, distressed kind of situations where they want to, I'm going to argue with you just because I want to give you my opinion.
Yeah, I just want to give you my opinion. I want you, and it really got, and that was, and you bring up a good point, because I think the conversations would be going more into, we would get away from talking about the actual design of nuts and bolts and pulleys and steel cables and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And more into this thing of, okay, well, in this area, this, sustainability might be the most important thing, or manufacturability might be the most important thing, or we call it in the engineering world, the ilities. Which utility takes the control? And so
it's so fascinating. If you're sucked into the content, you end up talking about ilities or whatever else the content is, and you miss all of the way that someone's communicating, which is basically advertising how they understand and perceive the world and how they want to be treated. And that's showing up, but it can be missed if you go down the ilities rabbit hole of
the ility factor.
Not to say those aren't important. Obviously, in the engineering world and every other world, the content does matter, but we can lose the effectiveness of the conversation. And it just feels like Groundhog Day, how they
Yeah. Okay. What's he going to argue with me about now? Well, not every conversation has to be an argument if you are able to listen to how things are being communicated more than what's being communicated.
Right. Some people want to make sure we're all on the same page about what's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Very much so. Interesting. I think for me, what I hear, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but some of this, I think probably the big takeaway out of your story, though, Steve, is that really just realize that some people aren't gruff or bossy or whatever. Primarily, they just want to have their say. They want to be recognized for their opinion.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Exactly. It's being recognized for their opinions, their beliefs, and that
So
took a little bit hard for this guy who's all worried about getting the equation right and picking out the right length of the bolts and
right.
making sure the information is clear and concise.
Of course, I probably wouldn't help if I said, "Hey, I appreciate your opinion, man. You put that was some really good insights and thoughts on that." But no buts allowed.
That's allowed. It is interesting. I would have to say that is probably what drew me to this line of work, is that often people thought of me as argumentative or abrasive or, insert some other adjective. And I had a very hard time understanding why that was. I knew my heart. I knew how much I cared. I didn't understand why I struggled to connect with people and communicate with people personally and professionally. So when I found this model, it was so eye-opening to me of like, oh, not everyone sees the world the way I do. Not everyone needs the same things that I do. So yeah, how can I get what I need? But I don't need to try to make sure everyone else has that same thing. It's just something that I need for me. And that was just an amazing takeaway for me when I learned this model. And I often get from my clients, the most common question that I get is like, well, which is the best style? Which is the best communication style for this type of job or for management or
Yes.
and that mindset to me is really like part of why I do the work that I do. It's because there is something that is best for each of us, and recognizing that just because that works best for us, it is not going to work best for everyone else. And having a team where we all think and communicate the same way leads to groupthink. It's very dangerous. So, Steve in the aviation field, Sandy in, being out on ropes courses and zip lines, like there are real safety concerns when all of us see something the same way and agree. It's not the most effective way. The most effective way is having that diversity. And just like Steve was saying, wow, if we can listen to the other things that people are saying, we can have so much more effective interactions and get to the root of, not just what we're talking about, but what matters most to each person involved in the conversation to work together more effectively. And that's been so eye-opening for me. And I love seeing the aha moment when it clicks, and you can really tell. It just feels like when people are like, yeah, but really give me the statistics on like which one works best.
Yeah.
There is no one best. Like this model has been around for decades. There's no correlation with success, no correlation with intelligence, but there is a high correlation between whether or not we know what we need and are getting that met on a regular basis in order to really be able to have healthy conversations.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great insight. Thank you, Loretta.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to go next with their story?
Oh, that was my story, Stephen. Did you want one? I could add
Great story it was.
to mine. Uh-oh.
No. I'm teasing.
I was trying to sidebar into mine.
I thought it was beautiful. I knew it was your story. I was like, that's what was written on the outline.
Yes, but I could have turned it into a story format and added a character and gone the story brand method
framework, the Don Miller one. Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of funny because my brain was wanting to hear in a narrative thing. So I apologize. That was interesting. That was good insight, though.
Thank you. But I did skip right to the bottom line there.
You went to the juicy part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so fun. I love that. I love the way that every time we talk, this is what we do. Like, oh, I noticed this about me, and I noticed this about me. And Loretta's story went one way. And Stephen was looking for something else, and we are all different and unique. And Stephen, this is my story. Um, and I am the character.
That's
Story!
great. Well played, Sandy. Well played.
Sometimes we all need a little extra
Thank
information or a
you.
little extra, right?
Yes,
A
thank
little
you.
extra input. Um, the speaking as a person who frequently needs a little more direction and input, but uh, I am the character in my story, but I'm listening to Larita and Stephen. And if anyone out there is wondering, we did not practice these stories together ahead of time.
No.
And so I'm also like seeing myself in your stories and relating to them. Um, so my story may ramble a little bit. And so, Steve, one of the things that I think is interesting, I had a boss who I had a hard time communicating with once, back in the day. And and in this case, I went to her seeking more direction because that's what I needed. What can I do? What, to help you? And because she had replaced a different boss that I had, so I was very used to working, with the one person, and we had a good rhythm. And so I had a new boss, and I was like, "What do you need me to do?" And she looked at me and went, "I don't think there's anything that you can do." And absolutely a
Oh.
full inflection on that, and I was like, okay. And I didn't stay in that job very much longer. And but now I know that she is the one that was suffering. She could not delegate anything to me because she was so insecure herself about her ability to do her job, and felt like she had to do all of the things. Um, and that's why there was nothing that I could do to help her. And that was absolutely the way she said it. She tilted her head and she said, "I don't think there's anything that you can do to help me." And it was very hurtful to me. But now I know that she was in a much worse place, really, than I was. So that was just
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It's always fascinating to look back and think about those interactions that
Yeah.
happened before we knew about this model. But so for me, though, um, I have one of those personalities, kind of like you were saying, Larita, that's kind of misunderstood sometimes. And I said had, as though it's gone away. It has not gone away. Um, but especially like in American culture, it's so focused on doing things all the time and being so productive, and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a person who needs a lot of downtime and a lot of solitary space and chance to just kind of reflect, and even more so a few years ago than now. Um, and so I really felt, um, I internalized, and I like also got it from a lot of people that just wasn't okay. That wasn't right. Because I was not as productive as someone else, because I felt like I didn't have enough to offer, because I was listening to the messages, in society about that. And I had the opportunity to learn more about PCM, this model that we all love. And what's interesting is, this is a sidebar. Um, I took the opportunity, and like really went after the opportunity to learn more, because I was introduced to the model without realizing it, because the people that I learned about it from were using it, and they energized me in a way that I did not always experience. And that was, in hindsight, like such an incredible thing. And so I took that energy, I went after this opportunity, and I learned about this model. And it turns out, y'all, I'm okay. I'm normal. You're normal. And it's okay for me to need what I need, for you to need what you need, and for all of us to ask for and seek out those opportunities. So um, that was, it sounds so simple, but that was like mind blowing for me in the
Mm-hmm.
in the space that I was in, which was not really a great space a lot of the time. Um, but it also gave me the language to talk about it and explain what I needed, so that I could also say to my husband, "This is legit. This is what I need. Here's some science. Here's some information for you." because he would like all the information there is. Thank you very much. And so I was able to say, here it is. Here's this information. And I was able to explain it so that he was like, oh, okay, that's a real thing. And it definitely started us on a path of better communication together, deeper understanding of each other, and how we work together as a couple. So that's my story.
Oh, Sandy, there are lots of things you can do to help. And I love getting to that place of like, I'm okay, you're okay. It does sound so simple, and yet it is truly revolutionary.
It is. It really is. And it can be so challenging to, in every way, to embrace it in myself, to embrace it in others, to know that my old boss and Steve's old boss were good humans, even when they were driving us completely batty. To understand that they were coming from a place where they were struggling with that understanding. So
yeah, and I think that right there for me is the big takeaway from your story for me, Sandy, is that we got to remember so many times when we feel it's an attack on us, like I was being attacked in my design. You obviously
I was being belittled
type of thing. I really think that's it, and that's one of the big aha moments, is that it's actually they're telling more about themselves than they are coming after you with trying to belittle you in one way or another, where you're completely incompetent or your work is completely incompetent, which is what a lot of people with me felt. And it's not me. It's that. Yeah, that's huge. Love it.
That is a huge awareness to realize, like, people are just doing the best with the tools that they have, and many of us were not given these tools to recognize healthy versus unhealthy, and when there's an unhealthy pattern going on or an unhealthy interaction, knowing what to do about it.
You bring great. I'm sorry to jump in, but you bring up such a cool thing, which is another story to tell later on, is about when with this information you start discovering, this will make more sense later, but you discover where you're at versus where you want to be. And you're actually giving yourself your own cues to go like, okay, now that I know where I'm at, what am I going to do about it? And there are things that can help an individual to basically make it so they can be in that okay. Because you guys are talking about, I'm okay, you're okay. Well, I feel like if I'm able to get myself okay, we've got half the battle won. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve, get out. Get out a little bit. I'll drink my coffee.
It's all good. I love it. It's great. Yeah, I think the Sandy, with your story though, I have found for myself, it's giving me a lot more patience, grace, maybe, for people when I recognize this. Well, when I feel it, stress begets distress, or, you feel it, you feel the stress other people are going through. It serves as a reminder for me, kind of like when you're doing what's it called? Cognitive behavioral therapy, and you got the rubber band and you pop yourself with a rubber band kind of a thing. When I feel the distress, it's like popping the rubber band in my head to Stephen, have a little bit of patience with this person, please, kind of a thing. And it really has helped me see the person behind the behavior or the words, rather than being sucked up into, Loretta, how did you say it earlier? Being sucked up into content. So really understanding the process of how things are being said. And that's been really good. I had, mine's going to be a little different, where I had a mom who came to me, and I had been doing the teaching, the presentation and stuff at a church. And she comes up to me, she goes, Stephen, she goes, I now understand how my daughter, or why she's so different than me. She understood that her daughter saw the world differently than what she did. The mom was a very time structured individual. Her daughter was very much a creative, like, woo, would just fly for whenever, however, kind of a thing. And she goes, well, here's my situation. And so I gave her some ideas on, well, this is how you can connect with her. And one of the things I usually tell people, this is just a fun phrase that I use to help solidify, but it's called animate the inanimate. And I said, make something that's not alive come alive, make it fun, kind of a thing. She's okay. Well, she comes back the next week and she's like, Stephen, she goes, I did not think it would work, which is what that friend would say every time. It doesn't make sense, and I didn't think it would work. She goes, it did. I'm like, oh, well, tell me about it. What happened? And she goes, my daughter, I couldn't get her to get ready for school. She was all over the place. We had to hurry up. We only had 10 minutes left. And I fixed her a bowl of Cheerios and I set it on the counter. And she was just all over the place. And I was like, I got to get her to eat her Cheerios. And I was trying to tell her, eat your Cheerios, go eat your Cheerios. And it just wasn't connecting with her. And then I remember what you said. So then I pretended to be the Cheerios and I said, oh, Katie, we are getting soggy because you have not eaten us yet, kind of thing. I was like, oh my goodness, that's hysterical. I said, what did she do? And she got the obligatory, mom, kind of a thing. And then she went over, she ate her Cheerios, got her backpack, and she was out the door. It was the craziest thing. And then the mom was just starting to tear up. And she's starting to cry because it was really an authentic moment of connection, of realizing that we are wired differently, or we perceive the world. I mean, we have all these types within us, but yet some are stronger than others, and just realizing that there are differences, and saying, I think that's how you said it, I'm okay. It's okay. And coming to grips with, there's nothing wrong with my daughter. It's just that she views the world differently and able to accept her. Because I think, as parents, I think that's the great concern is they're different. Something must be wrong with them. No, they perceive and interact with the world differently, and that's okay. So,
right? We want to teach them how to function in the world and be your best self, but we're trying to teach them how to do that through our own lens. And I appreciate your story. Growth happens at the end of our comfort zone. I'm curious, like that mom had the courage to try something that she didn't think would work and undoubtedly was probably a little bit uncomfortable for her.
Yes.
What do you think it is that prompts people to have the willingness to go out and try it versus just doubling down on doing it the way that they're used to doing it, their habit?
You ready? Go, Sandy. You go first. Go right ahead. Go.
Based on my personal experience, it's knowing that you're okay. That's like when I understand that I'm okay, I have the resilience to try something that I might not otherwise try. Like I have the ability to stretch out further. When I'm not okay, that's when I like pull back in and hunker down, and I don't want to see any other perspective but my own, because that's more than I can handle right there. So for me, it's knowing and being in that space where I know that I'm okay, and the way I am, whether I'm in the best space at the moment or not, is acceptable. It's loved. It's okay to be who I am. That's the not geeky answer. That's just not the science answer. To me, I think it's just the personal, like when I know that, when I'm assured of that part of it, then I have the strength and the resilience to stretch out and do something that's a little harder for me.
That makes perfect sense, right? Psychological safety is required in order to have curiosity.
Yeah. Oh, you see, I knew you would say it in a way more sciencey way.
Right, it does.
Not every science version. That's why we're so powerful as a group. How would you say, Foster? What's your thought?
Well, Sandy, I appreciate your perspective because my brain did not go that route, which is really funny. For me, I mean, making fun of myself. I love your explanation though, because there is something to be said about safety. I took it from a little bit different. I make the changes because of pain, because I want to be safe. So I have a little bit different nuance. So for me, it is, I think for the mom, it was the pain of trying to deal with her daughter. And I'm like, I'm going to have to do something different. I can't get there. I'm not feeling it. And I think for me, in my own life, it's very much, pain is a motivator. Unfortunately, not saying I want to go out and hurt myself, or that's not what I mean. That did sound kind of weird, didn't it? But I'm just
sense, right? If it's working, why would you change it? It's something
right.
has to not be working in order for you to want to try something new.
Yeah, I hate to say it's conflict avoidance. I don't necessarily mean it that way, even though it's pain avoidance. Look, in other words, I'm going through this pain. I have to do something different, or I have to react in a different way, or I have to look at this from a different angle, because what I'm doing is not working. See, there's my analytical brain coming in, because it's not working. And so something has to change, and I have to do something different. So anyway, that was the perspective I took, kind of a thing, because I want to be safe, and I feel like I have to make a change in order to be safe. So that sounded weird too. To be okay, I have to change. Man, I'm just batting 1,000, everybody.
Did you want to weigh in on that one, Maylee? Or
well, okay. So Stephen got a little analytical. I'll go full up analytical on you. And of course, why do people change? Well, I think people take the step out, take a chance, type of thing. Part of me wants to say they think that there's a chance for something better than what they have now, which kind of goes along with what Stephen is saying. I mean, why do I put the money down on Seabiscuit to win the 4th race at Belmont? Well, because I think there's going to be a chance for something better. I think there is that. And also going along a little bit with what Stephen said, I see that, and this is, I think it's quoted to Albert Einstein, that if you keep doing the same thing over again, it's expecting something different. It's the first step to insanity. So it's why, and being analytical even more than Stephen, I feel like sometimes, if I always do X and I get Y, X gives me Y, X gives me Y. Well, let's throw J out there and see what happens.
Let's throw a little, and it does take courage. Okay, I will give you a story, a short story, but it will actually have a character. We'll call him Bob. Bob was not his real name, but Bob was a new manager, and this frustration of like, my team is not responding to me, and Bob continued taking on more and more. So maybe the early stages, Sandy, of the boss that you referred to, it was clear from what I was seeing from my perspective where this was going. If there was not some trust built and some connection that was going to happen. And so through different conversations and training, and we looked at Bob's profile and what Bob's preference was for communicating compared to statistically what happens in the world, what's being observed from the team. And it just wasn't like, Bob was just not willing to try something new. And so what we did, we sat down with Bob's emails, and I'm like, show me what you're saying. You say like you're saying the same thing over and over and they're not doing it. And as much as it's difficult to say, well, let me take a look at myself because I'm the one common denominator in this pattern, it is more comfortable sometimes to say like, these people are the problem, but we have no control over getting other people to do things. Now, if we change, to Maylee's point, if we add a different variable in, it's actually a much more empowering perspective. So we sat down and we looked at these emails that went back and forth, and they got more detailed and longer, and yet they got less and less effective over time. And the pattern was the same every single time. And it was like the idea that Bob had is, if I just give more clear direction and more direction, then my team will do things the way that I want them to get done, and I will be an effective manager. But to your point, Boster, it was not working for Bob. And it did, I think, take a lot of that, all of those things, the psychological safety, the recognition that it wasn't working, and then also that belief in that there is something better, a better way. So I am excited for all of the people who are feeling courageous enough to try something better, especially before it gets to the point of being painful. I would not wish that on anyone. I know how painful it can be to be an ineffective communicator.
Right? Woo. Well, that was good. Well, everybody, we're almost at an hour, considering the beginning point and stuff, and it's so great to have you all with us. And to all of you, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your stories and stuff like that. Everybody, you can check out more at our website at connectandmotivate.com. Connectandmotivate.com. And there you'll find some more resources. We are building that as we go. So please continue to check in, because we're going to have some new stuff out there as well. And if there's anything that you want to hear from us, we'll be sure to get how to connect with us on there with some of our emails and stuff, so you can ask us more questions. Maybe something that we shared kind of spoke to you and you want to ask someone here a deeper question. We'll make sure we get those all in the comments, how to best get in contact with us. And also, this was great. Our goal, everybody, at Connect to Motivate really is to really help you connect with others and yourself, and how to motivate yourself and others really for true life change. So thanks so much. Anybody else have anything else they want to share and say?
Thanks for spending time with us.
Take care, everybody.